Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Sharma.
Hello friends, good evening. This is Vijay. I welcome you all to the ForumIAS Hindu Daily. In our today's news discussion, we are going to discuss 5 topics in the slide. The first topic, objections overruled, forest bill goes to house unchanged. So this is related to the amendment what the government had made with respect to the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Then second topic we are having related to the turtles and the National Mission for Clean Ganga. In Varanasi, turtles help clean the Ganga. This is the article title. Thirdly, we are having restoring WTO's crown jewel. So this is related to the dispute settlement system in the WTO and US acting as a roadblock for the appointments to the dispute settlement system. So the third article have been discussing about it very briefly. And fourthly, we are having BRICS summit. So BRICS summit will be in person despite Putin's warrant. So this is the statement made by the South Africa's Prime Minister. And lastly, we are having LVM3. So this is a GSLV variant, and in future we are going to use the same LVM3 for launching the Chandrayaan-3 mission. So these are the 5 articles we are going to discuss today. Now without any further delay, let us dive into the discussion part. This is the first article. Kindly go through the article. Before getting into the article, let us have a brief about the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So this is the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Primarily, this act looks up for promoting the sustainable management of the forest resources. So it indirectly have been prohibiting the conversion of the forest land for non-forest uses or utilizations. So here, if any party, if they are asking for the forest land for any non-forest purposes means, then they are supposed to make a payment to the government, right? So this is the core principle behind the Forest Conservation Act 1980, and it stipulated that central permission is necessary to practice sustainable agroforestry in forest areas. So this is the prime objective behind the enactment of Forest Conservation Act 1980. Then violation or lack of permit was treated as a criminal offense. Let's say the industry X is getting established in the forest land without the permission from the central government machineries means it will be deemed as a crime. So this is what it have been describing here. Then with respect to the enactment of the Forest Conservation Act 1980, the government, it formed the advisory committee. So what is the role of the advisory committee? If any party, they are submitting the DPR, which means the detailed project report in the forest landscape means it need to be scrutinized by the advisory committee. Then based on the scrutiny, the advisory committee, it will be providing inputs to the central government, and if it is suitable means, then the central government will provide the clearance. So this is how advisory committee have been functioning under the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Then thirdly, we are having the act deals with 4 categories of forest. What are the 4 categories of forest? The first one is a reserve forest. Then we are having village forest, then protected areas. Then lastly, we are having private forest. Private forest is nothing but a forest region which is under the control of some private entities. So as like a government forest regions are there, right? Like that, the private agencies also will be having some dense forest regions. So the Forest Conservation Act, it ensures the forest related governance in both the private and the public land. Then lastly, it targeted to limit deforestation, conserve biodiversity, then save wildlife. So these are all the terms we can use in the exam. Though this act provides greater hope towards forest conservation, it was not successful in its target. In India, we are well known, we are following a haphazard development, right? We are not doing a planned development. That's what this development and the related measures and all have been impacting the forest regions decisively. So even though the government enacted the Forest Conservation Act, the government agencies, they couldn't able to reap any benefits out of the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Now with this note, let us move on to the next slide. So here with respect to the article, the context, what is the context? Actually, the government proposed certain amendments to the Forest Conservation Act 1980. And those amendments, after getting submitted in the House, it actually passed to the standing committee, because in the standing committee, they will scrutinize the amendments, right? So the standing committee, it recently endorsed all the amendments and it provided green signal for the enactment of the act, which means in the future, these all amendments will be included in the act. So with respect to these amendments, the critics have been stating that these proposed amendments, it will dilute the provisions what we enacted under the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So the government have been stating that there are several delays in the projects. So we all will know the government agencies, they have been carrying out several projects, right, in the forest regions. So those projects and all getting delayed because of the clearances. So this is what the government have been stating. So to avoid those delays, the government is coming up with the amendments. So this is the argument from the government side. But we need to know what are the concerns are there with respect to the proposed amendments, right? So the concern first, the first concern is it empowers the central government to divert any forest land. Here, any forest land means it can be a dense forest or very dense forest or sparse land or any open forest region. So all these regions, it can be diverted for non-forest purposes by the central government agencies when there is a due compensation. If the party is providing the due compensation means, then obviously the central government will permit it for the non-forest purposes. So this is the first concern related to the proposed amendment. Secondly, it extends to non-classified forest also. So what is meant by non-classified forest? With respect to India, most of the forest regions, they are getting mentioned in the Gazette, right? So there will be certain landscapes. It will be accorded as a forest region, but it won't be get notified in the Gazette. So these regions will be termed as a non-classified forest. Under the proposed amendment, the provisions of the Forest Conservation Act, it will be applicable to the non-classified forest also, which means if any industry, if they are going to make any establishment in the non-classified forest means, after paying the due compensation, they can get the approval from the government missionaries. So this is the second concern. Then the amendment, what the government is proposing to the FCA, it have been excluding two regions. So first one is the land recorded as forest before October 25, 1980, but not notified as a forest. So this is what I already explained to you. Actually, they are excluding the purview of non-classified forest from the Forest Conservation Act. Then secondly, the proposed amendment, it have been excluding the land changed from forest to non-forest before 1996. Why the year 1996 had been taken? Because in the year of 1996, the 𝐂𝐻𝐵 judgment, right? The 𝐂𝐻𝐵 case. So in that, the apex court, they pronounced that the provisions of the Forest Conservation Act can also be extended to the non-forest regions also. So this is what the government agencies have been excluding the second variant of land, that too the land changed from forest to non-forest before 1996. So because of this judgment, the government agencies have been excluding these land regions. Then the third concern is the construction of idle project, roads and any such projects in geographically sensitive areas which are falling within the 100 km of international borders or the line of control won't require any clearances. What it have been stating, why the government have been ensuring this provision in the amendment? The reason is the government have been carrying out several military preparedness oriented issues in the international borders, right? So within the 100 km of international borders, to ensure the military readiness and the military preparedness, the government have been taking several initiatives. So like we have been constructing the bridge, and the military agencies have been constructing the troop stations, etc. and all, right? So for these constructions, it won't require any clearances. So this is what the amendment have been stating, because these clearances, it have been delaying the project. So this is the major concern for the defense agencies. That's what these regions. And another one thing, with respect to the idle and roads and all, we can take northeast region. in northeast region, the government have been expanding the footprint of their road construction, right? So there have been a huge development process. It have been going on in the northeast region. So to ramp up the speed of the projects, the government proposed amendments. So these are all the factors which are behind the proposed amendment. Now let us have a brief recap about the amendments what it had been proposed. And here you can see there is no permission which is required for the linear projects. Linear projects are nothing but a road construction, hydel projects, etc. and all. So it won't require any clearances from now onwards, and that too for the projects which are considered as a national importance. National importance in strategic points. Strategic points are nothing but which are the areas falling within the 100 kilometer in the international border regions. So these regions, it won't require any clearances for the establishment of any projects. Then there won't be any clearances. It will be required for security related purposes like the stationing camps, right? Then training camps. So these stuffs and all, it won't require any clearances from now onwards. Then thirdly, there won't be any clearances required for the defense related projects also. So from now onwards, there won't be any requirement of defense related projects like the ammunition camps, then training camps, then for stationing the ammunitions and all, they will be building the infrastructure, right? So these infrastructures, they won't require any clearances. That too up to 5 hectares in the left wing affected regions. In the left wing affected regions, that one, the red corridor, which is located between the Pashupatinath temple of Nepal to the Tirupati of the Andhra Pradesh, right? So in this region, there won't be any requirement of clearances related to the defense related projects. Then we are having permit to construct structures or any practices promote livelihood and national security. In the forest region, you might have known, in the periphery regions, the tribal people and all will be living, right? They won't require any clearances to promote their livelihood, or in the same region, the government agencies, they can construct any infrastructure which promotes the national security, won't be requiring any clearances. So these are all the amendments they have been proposed in the Forest Conservation Act 1980, and critics have been stating that it actually have been defeating the core purpose of the enactment of the Forest Conservation Act 1980. It literally have been diluting the provisions what we are having in the concerned act. So this is the main critique of the proposed amendments. Now with this note, let us move on to the next article. This is the second article, guys. In Varanasi, turtles help clean the Ganga. So with respect to this article, we need to know about the Namami Ganga program. Namami Ganga program, it was launched in the year of 2014, and there have been several initiatives had been undertaken under the Namami Ganga program. The Wildlife Institute of India, the Ministry of Forest, then the implementation agency of Namami Ganga program, which is National Mission for Clean Ganga. So these all agencies, they collaborated together and they are doing a captive breeding of the turtles, which means they are simply rearing and releasing the turtles in the river Ganga. River Ganga is highly polluted. Why? Because in river Ganga, we have been releasing excess waste. On the banks of river Ganga, we have been performing the funeral of the dead. Then we have been performing several rituals to attain the moksha, right? Especially the Hindu people, they have been performing several rituals on the bank of Ganga to attain the moksha, right? So these rituals, they have been releasing excess waste into the water of river Ganga, and these waste, they have been acting as a pollutant load. So because of these activities and the related industrial waste which are released from the industries, the entire ecosystem in the Ganga region have been getting polluted. So to eliminate the pollutant load in the river Ganga, the government, they came up with several measures. Namami Ganga program is one among them. So under the Namami Ganga program, they reared and released several turtles. Almost 12 out of 29 turtles were handpicked and they were reared and released in the river Ganga. And the results have been very surprising, because these turtles, they actually brought down the biological oxygen demand, the amount of oxygen which is required for processing the organic pollutant in the water. So it had been brought down. Then the amount of fecal coliform in the river water. Coliforms are nothing but they are a variant of bacteria, E. coli you might have known. These E. coli, they are living in the intestines of the human beings. So in the fecal matter, these E. coli bacteria, they will be released. So if there is excess fecal coliform in the river water means, then obviously we can infer that the water is polluted by the fecal matter, right? The river water is getting polluted by the excess release of the fecal matter. So with the release of the turtles, the fecal coliform in the water also brought down. Then the dissolved oxygen, the amount of dissolved oxygen is increased in the river water, and these all results, it will contribute to the conservation in the river Ganga, right? So this is what it have been discussed here. And with respect to this article, we need to know about the Namami Gang program. And before getting into the Namami Gang program, let me explain the difference between turtles and a tortoise. So turtles, they are actually will be having a highly streamlined body, and most of the time will be spending by turtles in water only. So with respect to tortoises, they usually will be walking in the land, because in the tortoise you can see the toes, right? So these toes will be used by tortoises for walking in the land, but with respect to turtles, these toes will be used for swimming. Now with respect to the Namami Gang program, it is the flagship program of the Union government, and it is an integrated conservation mission, and it was established in the year of June 2014 to accomplish twin objectives. What are the twin objectives? One is abatement of pollution. So here is the abatement of pollution. Then they are going to carry out the conservation and rejuvenation of river Ganga. So this is what the government, they had envisioned the Namami Gang program. Then who are the implementation agency with respect to Namami Gang program? In the national level, we are having National Mission for Clean Ganga. And in the state level, we are having SPMGs, State Program Management Groups. So it is a two-tiered implementation agencies. These two agencies, they have been implementing the program in the national and in the state level. Then there are several pillars are there with respect to the Namami Gang program. The first one is related to the sewage treatment infrastructure. Each and every industry and associations in the Gangetic region, they need to establish the STPs. Then the riverfront development. To reduce the pollutant load, the government have been taking up several initiatives in the riverfront domain. Then thirdly, we are having river surface cleaning. The floating organic waste and all will be removed by certain machineries under the mission. So this is the river surface cleaning. Then obviously the government will be conserving the biodiversity, and they are having ambitions to promote the afforestation in the Gangetic region. Then the public awareness campaigns and all will be carried out. And under the public awareness campaign, the IEC component will be used. Information, education and communication. These all components will be used. Then each and every industry who are locating in the Gangetic region, they need to install the effluent monitoring in their establishments. Then we are having Gangagram. What is meant by Gangagram? Gangagram is a concept of reducing the pollutant load in the villages. So each and every villages, they will be contributing some pollutant load to the river Ganga, right? So with the establishment of the Gangagram, the scheme have been aiming to reduce the pollutant load from the villages. So these are all the main pillars of the Namami Gang program. And here we are having Ganga Action Plan. These are all the several other initiatives which were taken in the past. And this is the Ganga Action Plan. It was the first river action plan that was taken up by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in the year of 1985 to improve the water quality by interception, diversion and treatment of domestic sewage. So this is what the Ganga Action Plan had envisioned. Then the National River Conservation Plan. It is a phase 2 of the Ganga Action Plan, right? Then we are having NGRBA, National River Ganga Basin Authority. It was formed by the Government of India in the year of 2009 under Section 3 of the EPA, Environment Protection Act 1986. After the establishment of NGRBA, the government declared Ganga as the National River of India. Then thirdly, we are having Clean Ganga Fund. In the year of 2014, the government envisioned the Clean Ganga Fund, and it was formed for cleaning up the Ganga and setting up of waste treatment plants in and around the Gangetic region, and it is having aim to conserve the biotic diversity in the river. So these are all the objectives of the Clean Ganga Fund. Now with this note, let us move on to the next article. This is the third article, guys. Restoring the World Trade Organization's crown jewel. So in this article, they have been referring dispute settlement system of WTO as a crown jewel. So we all well know dispute settlement system, it consists of two tier. The one is a dispute settlement body, then the other is a appellate authority. So these two entities, they will be called as a crown jewel in the WTO. And here with respect to this article, the US have been blocking the appointment to the dispute settlement system. Why the US have been blocking? That's a separate case. Initially, the US have been blocking the appointment. So since 2019, the dispute settlement system is non-functional. Both the appellate authority and the dispute settlement body, DSB. We used to term it as a DSB and appellate authority. Okay. So these are the two entities. They will be called as a crown jewel of the WTO. So because of the blocking of the appointment by US, these two entities, they are paralyzed since 2019. And with respect to the Geneva Ministerial Conference, it happened in the last year. So in 2022, the Geneva Ministerial Conference of WTO happened. So in that meeting, the Mexico, they tried to bring their resolution related to the appointment of the members to the dispute settlement system. But again, US was acted as a roadblock to the resolution. So why they have been acting as a roadblock? The first and foremost reason, USA have been stating that dispute settlement body, both the dispute settlement body and the appellate authority, they are doing a judicial overreach. In certain cases, they are not supposed to involve or interfere, but they are doing. So this is the judicial overreach, right? So this is the first and foremost reason which was claimed by USA. Secondly, USA have been stating that dispute settlement body, they don't have any power to create a binding precedent, but they are creating the binding precedents. So this is what USA have been claiming. With respect to the binding precedents, in India's case, we are having Supreme Court and High Courts in the states. So the judgments what these courts have been pronouncing today, it will be act as a record in the future, right? So this record will be termed as a binding precedents. With respect to India, in 1973, we are having a 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐬𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐞 There the court, the apex court, it came up with the basic structure of the constitution. So on the fundamental of the basic structure of the constitution, the court had nullified several legislative measures, right? So these stuffs and all will be termed as a binding precedents. And with respect to the WTO, Article 3, Subprovision 2, it clearly states that dispute settlement system is a central element of the WTO. And with respect to the cases which involve the precedents, the article have been clearly stating that the dispute settlement system, it will consider all extra facts in the cases which involve precedents. Let's say there are two cases are there, one in the past and one in the future. In the future case, if some extra circumstances are coming into the scenario means, then the dispute settlement system, it will take a decision by including all the extra facts which involves in the concerned cases, right? So this is what the Article 3, Subprovision 2 have been stating. Then, dispute settlement system, it also asks WTO panels to follow precedents only when the cases are exactly same. So if there is no extra facts are involved means, then in those cases, the precedents can be followed as such. But if any extra circumstances or any extra facts, if they are coming into the scenario means, then the decision should be taken by including all those extra facts. So this is what the DSS have been stating. Now, let us discuss why US is against the dispute settlement system itself. So we all well know WTO itself is a brainchild of the US. But these days, why US have been against the DS? So dispute settlement system, it have been becoming a headache for US. So we all well know International Criminal Court and International Tribunal on the Law of Sea, they are having power to create a precedents, right? So even in ICC and ITLOS, the precedents and all will be used only the facts are same. If there is any added facts or any extra circumstances arises in particular case means, then both ICC and the International Tribunal on Law of Sea, they will take actions also including all those extra facts, right? And the US, with respect to DSS, they are actually looking up for dejudicialization of multilateral trade. In today's era, we all well known there is a huge competition between several countries in the international market. So, with the establishment of WTO, the countries they actually sanctioned certain freedom to the WTO agencies, and US it wants its freedom back with respect to the trade because the China have been providing sheer competition to the US in the international market. That's what US wants those freedom back. Under WTO, it regulates all critical activities between the countries. But US, it wants its freedom back. So this is where the tussle have been arising. And what is the solution? The author, he have been stating that instead of taking a decision based on consensus, because with respect to WTO, all the decisions it will be taken only on the basis of consensus. So instead of moving the resolution by consensus, we can resort to voting. So this is what the author have been claiming in the solution. And the voting procedure, it will antagonize US, but we don't have any option in the bucket. So this is what the author have been claiming in the conclusion part. Now with this note, let us move on to the next slide. So this is the flowchart of the operation of the dispute settlement system in the WTO. This is not important from the perspective of exam. Kindly go through it once again. You will remember the facts. Now with this note, let us move on to the next article. This is the fourth article. BRICS summit will be in person despite Putin's warrant. Ramaphosa. So Ramaphosa, he is a South African president. So he stated that the BRICS summit, the upcoming BRICS summit will be in person despite Putin's warrant because the South Africa, it is a member of International Criminal Court. Already the International Criminal Court, they issued an arrest warrant against Putin. So it was expected that in future, if Putin is landing in any country means which is a member of ICC, then in that case he will be arrested. But I would say South Africa won't resort to any such measures. So here with respect to BRICS, it is an acronym for the grouping of the world's leading emerging economies, namely Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. So these 5 countries, they are the members of the BRICS. The BRICS members are known for their significant influence on regional affairs. Since 2009, the BRICS nations have met annually at formal summits. So originally, the first 4 were grouped as BRIC before the induction of South Africa in the year of 2010. And the first BRICS summit, it was happened in St. Petersburg in Russia. And these BRICS nations, they actually having 40% share in the global population, and they are having 24% of the global GDP, and they are controlling the 14% of the global trade. So these are the facts related to the BRICS. Now let us discuss about the key focus areas of BRICS. With respect to the geopolitics, this group, it articulates a common view on key global and regional issues, projecting a non-Western view. Either it be in WTO or in climate related talks, they actually influencing the Western countries by projecting their view. Then this grouping, it strengthened the world's march towards multipolarity, thus helping to curb the dominating influence of the West. West means it also includes United States of America and the countries which are in the European landscape like United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, right? Then with respect to economic cooperation, the 6th BRICS summit is very important with respect to the economic cooperation because the Fortaleza Declaration, which is the 6th BRICS summit, it actually provided some 2 key outputs. The first one is New Development Bank, then the secondly, the Contingent Reserve Arrangement. The Contingent Reserve Arrangement, it is an arrangement to forestall the short-term balance of payments crisis, and it has been strengthening the financial stability and credibility of the BRICS nations. We all well known about the New Development Bank. In the year of 2018, I think, and 2015, the UPSC, they had asked question about the New Development Bank. So the leaders signed the agreement establishing the New Development Bank, and NDB till today it committed for 96 socio-economic projects, right? Then with respect to the BRICS payment system, we are well known in the Ukraine-Russian war crisis, the Western countries, they imposed sanctions upon Russia, right? So today, the Russia, it couldn't able to use the SWIFT payment system. So BRICS countries, they are trying to create a payment system alternative to this SWIFT payment system, because whenever there is a crisis, the USA and the European countries, they are using this payment system to impose the sanctions. And today we all well known, almost 500 million US dollars, it hadn't been received by the exporters from India from the Russian agents. So it have been creating a payment crisis between Russia and India, because both these countries, they have been depending upon the SWIFT payment system. That's what all the BRICS countries, they are trying to devise the alternative system with respect to SWIFT payment. Now with this note, let us move on to the next article. This is the last article, guys. What is LVM-3? And here the LVM-3, the other ISRO rocket. LVM-3 is the heaviest rocket in India, and it belongs to the GSLV family. And it is a 3-stage launch vehicle. So initially, in the first stage, we are having 2 solid boosters, and these 2 solid boosters, they are using hydroxyl terminated polybutadiene for their combustion. And in the second stage, we are having liquid fuel stage, where we are using L110 engine, and in the cryogenic upper stage we are using C25 engine. In the liquid combustion we are using Vikas engine, right? There we are using nitrogen tetroxide or unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrogen. So this is the fuel we are having in the second stage of combustion. Then in the cryogenic upper stage we are using the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. So these are all the fuels we have been using for the cryogenic stage of combustion. And we all well known, the liquid hydrogen, it need to be stored in the cryogenic temperature, which means below 32 degrees Celsius. So below minus 32 degrees Celsius, we need to store the hydrogen. So that's what the fuel pumping system and all specially devised in the cryogenic upper stage. Then with respect to the payload, to the lower Earth orbit, which is locating about 200 kilometers from the Earth surface, where we are having the International Space Station and all. So to the lower Earth orbit, we can dispatch 8 tons of payload. But to the geostationary transfer orbit, which is locating above the 35,000 kilometers from the Earth surface, where we can send 4 tons of payload with the help of launch vehicle Mark III. Then with respect to the LVM-3, it made its maiden journey in the year of 2014. And it also carried the Chandrayaan-2 mission in the year of 2019. Then in last March, it placed 36 satellites belong to OneWeb, which weighs around 6 tons. Okay, in LEO, there it showed its capabilities to deliver multiple satellites into space. Then for the Chandrayaan-2, we actually used LVM-3. And for the upcoming Chandrayaan-3 mission also, we are going to use the LVM-3 launch vehicle, right? Now with this note, let us move on to the question section. Before getting into the question part, let us have a brief recap about what we have seen in our discussion today. So first article, it is about the amendment to the Forest Conservation Act, right? So where we have seen about the provisions of the Forest Conservation Act and what are the amendments they are going to include and what are the concerns with respect to the recent amendments, right? So this is what we have seen in the first article. Then secondly, we had taken up an article on the turtles. So turtles, we have been using the turtles for cleaning the Ganga under the Namami Ganga program. And where we have seen some basic parameters related to the pollution, and we have seen about the Namami Ganga program and the other related initiatives. Then thirdly, we have seen about the WTO dispute settlement system. So in that article, we had discussed why US have been blocking and what are the way forward and what are the main issue behind the blockage made by the USA. So these are all the stuffs we had discussed in the dispute settlement system article. Then fourthly, we have seen an article related to the BRICS, where we had discussed about the fundamentals of BRICS organization and the areas of cooperation with respect to the BRICS countries, right? And lastly, we had taken up a LVM-3. So LVM-3 is a variant of GSLV. Here we had discussed about certain basic features of the LVM-3. So these two articles, they are highly significant from the prelims perspective, and these three articles, they are highly important from the mains perspective. Now with this note, let us move on to the question section. This is the first question. Which one of the following is the context in which the term qubit is mentioned? So qubit, we all well known, it appeared in the newspaper multiple times, and qubit is very similar to the bits. We can store the information in qubit, and in quantum computing, several principles are there. So principle of superposition, entanglement, these stuffs and all have been getting used in the quantum computing, and we can store enormous resources in the quantum technology, and we can do the calculations much faster than the conventional computing system, right? So the answer option B is the right one for the question number 1. The second question, consider the following statements in respect of probiotics. So the first statement, probiotics are made of both bacteria and yeast. So this is true. Then secondly, the organism in probiotics are found in foods we ingest, but they do not naturally occur in our gut. Probiotics, they are living in the gut of human beings and other living organisms. So the second option is wrong. Thirdly, we are having probiotics help in the digestion of milk sugars. So this is also true. And 1 and 3 are right. The answer option 2 is the wrong. So the option C is the right one for the question number 2. Then, which one of the following statement best describes the role of B cells and T cells in the human body? So these B cells and T cells are immune cells. So the first option, they protect the body from the environmental allergen. So this is the function of the skin, and the B cells and T cells, they don't have any role over the protection of the body from the environmental allergens, right? And secondly, they alleviate the body's pain and inflammation. So this is also wrong. And they act as a immunosuppressants in the body. So immunosuppressants, the steroids and all will be acted as a immunosuppressants. In the COVID cases, we might have heard the usage of steroids, right? So they are acting as a immunosuppressants. And the answer option C is also wrong. Lastly, we are having, they protect the body from the diseases caused by the pathogens. So this is the answer for the question number 3. And with respect to the B cells and T cells, they will be storing the information related to the diseases. Once the pathogen enters the body, they will be secreting certain chemicals to defeat those pathogens, right? So this is how B cells and T cells have been functioning. And with this note, we are arriving at the end of the discussion. I hope you would like the discussion and press the like button. Subscribe us in all social media platforms. Thank you for your patience. Let me catch you in another discussion tomorrow. Bye.